silence. Their voices have been muted, and yet when African people make a freedom song, they don't call it Lift Some Voices. They don't say lift black voices. They said lift every voice. See, they never understood who was on those ships. Black folk had a different vision of freedom and democracy that was bigger than reversing the relations of oppression. We didn't want to be oppressors. We wanted to live in a world without oppression. We didn't want to be people who silence voices. We wanted to live in a world that listened to every voice. We were slaves and joined the military the first time we had access to the American democratic experiment. We wanted to vote in elections. We wanted to believe in America even when America didn't believe in America. And so it is that understanding of listening that governs our practice to this day. We cannot, on the one hand, fight for access for ourselves and leave other people behind. We can't get into the door and close it behind us. We must lift while we climb. That is what it means to listen deeply. It's not just a moral and ethical practice, though. It's a tactical political project. We listen so that we can strategize, so that we can organize. I used to work at Fox News on the visiting team. And I'd be on Fox and Friends at 6 a.m. and I go back at 10, go back at noon, go to 8 o'clock, debate Bill O'Reilly. I know. I ain't that smart, took a while to figure this out, but it was about 6 months, 8 months in, I realized over the course of the day, I had the same debate 4 times. They had the same talking points, they had the same statistics, they had the same jokes. And I was like, yo, how are they having the same conversation over and over and over again? And that's when I realized that every Monday at 11 a.m., they were having a meeting on the 6th floor. I wasn't invited to the meeting. They would send me to the 5th floor at 11 o'clock. And they'd be in there discussing stuff and strategizing and figuring out what they're going to say next and figuring out what they were going to do next. And it's not because all Republicans think alike. Republicans are diverse in opinion, just like Democrats are diverse in opinion, just like black folk and white folk are diverse in opinion. There's no singular worldview that governs anybody's experience. But that's my point. They'd be in there, they'd be evangelical Christians sitting down with free market fundamentalists who didn't care nothing about the evangelicals. They thought that some of the evangelicals were nuts, and yet they don't believe in dinosaurs, Bob. You know, it's that kind of thing. And then the free market fundamentalists would be in there thinking that the Second Amendment advocates were gun nuts, and the so-called gun nuts, and I'm not saying they're gun nuts, that's not my belief, I'm just saying that's how they talked about them. The so-called gun nuts would be fighting with homeschooling advocates, and homeschooling advocates wouldn't necessarily be caring about what the pro-lifers were talking about, but all of them worked together and organized together and struggled together and shared talking points together, and they voted together so that they could have a coalition that was stronger than their individual projects. But sometimes those of us who say we want to fight for freedom from the other side of the aisle, sometimes we get so divided by our issues that we don't see the connection between the issues. We're so worried about doing our thing over there that we actually find ourselves having our firing squad in a circle. We battling the people who's supposed to be on our side. And we become so obsessed with the intellectual and political value of what we do, and it is valuable, that sometimes we lose sight of the fact that there is a connection. You say, oh, I ain't got time for prison reform. I'm over here doing education reform, as if there's not a connection between K-12 education and mass incarceration. I'm doing anti-poverty. I can't think about your military project. As if there's not a relationship between poverty and militarism. As if the people who are the poorest, black, white, red, and yellow, are not the first people to go to war. Not the first people to be put on the front lines. And like the people who die in places like Somalia and Yemen and Afghanistan and Libya and Botswana are not economically vulnerable as well. People say, black people tell me this all the time, I can't think about your environmental activism, Mark. I ain't got time to think about the environment. I'm black. I can't worry about 50 years. I'm worried about the police now. I can't worry about the ozone layer. But if you don't think there's a relationship between racism and the environment, go to Flint, Michigan. Right now, or Newark, or Cleveland, or Philadelphia, where they poisoned the water. There's lead in the water, and they knew it. And they did nothing. Because those people were rendered disposable. And it's that politics of disposability, that some folks' lives are worth more than others. It's that belief that makes us have to link any conversation about racism and white supremacy to a conversation about the environment. We got to build together and listen together and struggle together and organize together. And that has been what we do. But it's also not just about getting America to listen to these new ideas and these radical ideas and these beautiful ideas. Deep listening is also about the black freedom struggle's long tradition of getting America to listen to itself. See, part of what African signifying has been about, part of what the Esu Elegba of West Africa, part of what black freedom letters and black freedom papers have tried to do, part of what black artists and black humanists have tried to do, part of what black singers have tried to do is to speak things into existence, not just through direct speech, but through indirection, through signal, through signifying, through mystery. We've tried to get America to listen to itself, to get America to be what America promised itself to be. When you read David Walker's Appeal, go back and read David Walker's Appeal. We study black stuff, we love black stuff, let's read some black stuff. Go read David Walker's Appeal, a preamble together with 4 articles to the colored citizens of the world, but particularly and most expressly those of the United States. David Walker's Appeal is an insurrectionist document. It's a powerful and compelling document. It was so subversive at the time that they made it illegal for black folk to read it. At one point it was illegal for white folk to print it. Negro preachers were hiding behind the Bible on Sunday because that was the only time Negroes could read out loud in public in certain spaces. So they had literally would read the book of Exodus and talk about David Walker's Appeal as a form of practical exodus. They were engaged in this text, but the text is not just a critique of Christianity. It's not just a critique of the moral atrocity of slavery. Think about the book itself. David Walker's Appeal, a preamble together with 4 articles. They're modeling the book after what? Yes, the Constitution. David Walker is signifying, he's saying, America, on the one hand, you have this freedom document that you promised to us, and on the other hand, you have this Negro who remains mired and wallowing in unfreedom. Listen to yourself. Go and read Frederick Douglass. Go and read Narrative of the Life of Olaudah Equiano or Gustavus Vassa, written by himself. These documents, these freedom papers, these slave narratives, and remember, they're not just slave narratives. They are conceptual documents. They are theoretical documents. Too often we allow European thought and white supremacy to govern our intellectual behavior in such a way that we think black folk just bring stories and white folk bring theory. This was an existentialist text as well. We can talk about that another time. I know we ain't got that much time. Villanova will play tonight. Somebody, they play somebody, I don't know. That's David Walker, Olaudah Equiano were forcing America to come to terms with the contradiction between saying we have a Judeo-Christian value, we have a love ethic, what Howard Thurman later called the love ethic of Jesus. What does it mean to have a love ethic of Jesus and a belief that what you do for the least of these, a belief that loving thy neighbor as if he were yourself is the primary measure of our faith on the one hand, and then having a nation that believes and supports slavery on the other? Wrestle with your fundamental contradictions. Listen to yourself. Even the books themselves, when Olaudah Equiano starts the book, he said, well, I entreat your pardon for putting before your work so wholly devoid of literary merit, written by what? An unlettered African. And then he gave one of the great books of the century. He wasn't feigning humility. He was signifying on a tradition that said that the Negro didn't have the capacity to learn how to read and write at the very same moment that Negroes were being obstructed from having access to being able to read and write. If we can't read and write, what are you trying to stop us for? Phyllis Wheatley, poems on various subjects, religious and moral. They let her write the book, but when it's time to publish it, they said a black woman couldn't have written that. Hume said, I'm apt to believe that the Negro, that African civilization has no original ideas in them, no creatives, nothing ingenious amongst them. There's talk of one Negro in Jamaica who is but like a parrot. Thomas Jefferson, after putting Phyllis Wheatley on trial in Notes of Virginia, he said what? This is beneath the dignity of criticism. He said Christianity created Phyllis Wheatley, but it could not create a poet. They say that she was mimetic, that she just jacked somebody else's style. That's how Thomas Jefferson talked. That Phyllis Wheatley just jacked somebody else's style. So when Negroes were writing these books and writing so-and-so, the narrative of the life of Gustav Vasa written by himself, narrative of the life of Frederick Douglass written by himself, they weren't merely being axiomatic. They weren't merely speaking things in the truth that were self-evident. They were responding to a world that didn't believe that we had the capacity to do it at the same time that they made it illegal for us to learn how to do it. It's part of a long history of contradictory engagement with Negro and African bodies in America. They say you can't read and write, but they make it illegal for you to learn how to read and write. They say you lazy, but they make you a slave. They say you dirty, but you clean people's houses. They say you uncivilized, but you raise their children. This is the fundamental contradiction of being an African subject in America. And the challenge of the African writer and thinker and freedom fighter has been to get America to listen to itself. So by the time you get to Dr. King on August 28, 1963, and he's up there saying, I'm here to cash a check, when he's standing in front of Lincoln saying a great American whose symbolic shadow we stand signed an Emancipation Proclamation, he is standing on the shoulders of Phyllis Wheatley and Olaudah Equiano and Maria Stewart and a whole bunch of other folk who had the courage to challenge America to be as good as its promise. That's what this is about. But you can't just listen. We must listen carefully, but we must also discern wisely. We must ask different questions. We must ask different questions. Part of what it means to struggle for freedom is to engage the world of ideas. We cannot be a generation of young activists who don't read nothing. Too often in this moment, we punish people for changing their minds. You run for president. 10 years ago, you said this, Jim, now you're saying that. Well, yeah, over 10 years I read some books, I learned that that's not true anymore, so I don't want to keep believing that. I grew. I changed. I matured. Can you imagine? 50 years ago you said smoking wasn't bad, but you stopped smoking. Yeah. After seeing all the people die, I was like, you know what, I could have been wrong on this one. What are you supposed to do? You supposed to just ride this out? Still holding on, like I'm not gonna quit. At some point, we have to grow and develop. The king of 55 ain't the king of 63. The king of 63 damn sure ain't the king of 68. Malcolm of 61 ain't the Malcolm of 65. Che of 62 ain't the Che of 67 when he dies. We grow. We mature. But you do that by engaging ideas. And not just folk who agree with you. Engage everybody. Challenge everybody. There are no sacred figures here in the sense that we might love Malcolm, but we might push back against Malcolm. Too many black academics worship Du Bois, but don't challenge Du Bois. Or we pretend Du Bois ain't had no interlocutor. And like it was just Du Bois and a bunch of people learning. Like there wasn't a group of folk from Lorraine to Hansberry to Marie Stewart to a whole bunch of there's a whole bunch of folk studying and learning from Du Bois, but also teaching Du Bois. We must engage ideas, and engaging ideas will allow you to ask different questions. As long as you ask questions on the terms of your oppressor, you will continue to lose. If you look at schools in Charlotte, or Fayetteville, or Atlanta, or the 5th Ward in Houston, or the 9th Ward in New Orleans, and you look at their achievement scores and you say, oh my God, what's going on with these kids, man? There's an achievement gap. You're accepting the terms of the oppressor. What does it mean to have an achievement gap? That black folk don't do well on tests, white folk? Yeah, that's true. There's also an achievement gap between whites and Asians on the same test. We just don't pathologize white people's stuff. But more importantly, we ignore the factors that get us to that point and reify the gap. Let me put it more simply. What if instead of calling it an achievement gap, we called it a funding gap? An investment gap, a mentoring gap, a teaching gap. The whole different conversation